You ever find a game so perfectly tailored to your tastes that it feels like it was designed specifically for you? Game devs don't answer that one. SIMBIB. Hello folks, welcome back to Stuff I Make Because I'm Bored. My name is Sin and I will be your host, and today I want to talk to you about Chants of Sennaar. I don't play video games often, but as you probably saw in my favorite YouTubers list, I love watching other people play games. It feels like sitting on the couch next to your friend as they play. However, every once in a while, a Let's Play comes along for a game that I just have to play. Lately, it's been farming sims or puzzle games, and one such game was Chants of Sennaar. This review will be mostly spoiler-free, but I will be talking about game mechanics, and, well, it's a puzzle game, so viewer discretion is advised. Part 1. Overview. Chants of Sennaar is a linguistic puzzle game. It focuses on the player as they journey through and up a tower, encountering different civilizations, unlocking the secrets of their unique languages through puzzles, and uniting these once divided people. It's very heavily inspired by the Tower of Babel, if you can believe that. The game itself is beautiful, with minimal shadows and bold colors. Each civilization is visually and thematically distinct, and even their languages reflect their differences. The civilization of fighters has brutish architecture with sharp angles and tall, imposing buildings, and their language is full of harsh, sharp edges. In contrast, the civilization of artists is very rounded and colorful with lots of greenery, and their language is flowing and smooth. And the music, man, the music! It's wonderful, each area as unique as the next, yet thematically linked, and since there's only written dialogue, it fills the otherwise quiet atmosphere, and builds and builds and builds into this incredible climax at the ending. Sorry, I just thought about the ending again. Anyway, Part 2. Gameplay. As I mentioned, Chants of Sennaar is a puzzle game, and as such has very simple controls. Mouse! Yeah, that's it. There's also the option to play with a controller, but it was still packed in a box, so please keep that in mind as I go through my experience. I played exclusively with mouse. You click to walk around, and you click to interact with things. My favorite mechanic is holding down the scroll wheel to highlight interactable objects, which was invaluable. Like I said, the game is very, very beautiful, but since it's meant to be such an immersive experience, the things you interact with don't stand out, like, at all. Some elements are more obvious than others, especially if you've got like a video game sense, but for other things, I would have never found it if it weren't for the scroll wheel hints. For example, which of these characters can you talk to? You can't really tell by looking, can you? The locations and areas are beautiful and also fairly large, with each section taking me about an hour and a half or so to play through. Some sections were a bit larger and more sprawling than others, but for the most part, figuring out where to go was pretty straightforward. There was also fast travel between specific points, which sped up the, sometimes tedious, travel between locations. But if you're missing words, or the next step on what to do, it did take me a very long time to backtrack thoroughly through every areas just to find the thing that I missed. The map was also sometimes a bit difficult to traverse, especially without a map. Now, this may not be a problem to someone else, but my sense of direction is famously garbage. I have gone on trips with friends where we drive into a city and I say, "Hey, I know where we are," and my friends will say, "No, you do not," to which I would reply, "Yes, I do, this is the place where we did such and such, remember?" And they'll say, Yes, I do remember, that happened in another city, the one that's 3 hours south of here." So I would have really loved a map, even if it was only for the sewer sections. Where do I go? The walking can also be a little clunky, especially in areas where the camera slowly pans with your character, requiring multiple clicks in a row for you to traverse it. I would have loved to just been able to push the arrow keys to walk around, honestly, but hey, it's a puzzle game. The small hiccups in the positioning of the character, or them getting a bit stuck on doorways, is no problem, since there's never a time where you need to move quickly or with precision. Oh yeah, did I mention that there's sneaking in this game? Yeah. In several areas of the game, you need to go undetected and sneak through a guarded area by hiding from the view of those who would try to catch you. For the first few, this isn't really a problem. The timing works out nicely and it's fairly simple to get by, but the further you get into the game, the harder it is to accurately position your character to avoid detection. In these moments, I really wanted to have access to the arrow keys so I could walk around. Especially for the ending. I will get there! Part 3, the puzzles. As you play, you pass through multiple civilizations that have been alienated from each other by their language barrier. You, an outsider who also doesn't speak their languages, start to pick up their languages through small overworld puzzles and context clues. Walking around and interacting with things and people helps you find new words in each language, and using your notebook, you can write what you think each of these words mean. I absolutely loved these puzzles. I loved walking around, talking to people, gaining context, making guesses, revisiting previous areas to check my work, seeing how new context changes old guesses. I also loved how, especially in the first 3 languages, the syntax is so different between each of them. In the first language, a multiple of something can be denoted by writing down multiples of a word. But in the languages after this one, there's an actual marker for plural. In some languages it comes before the word, and in some languages it comes after. Figuring this out felt so satisfying. One of my favorite parts of this game was finding new words and making wild guesses as to what they could possibly mean. This was especially tricky sometimes when going between languages, as what one civilization means by a word may be very different from what another civilization would mean. The words each civilization uses for each other, for example, comes to mind. Each location has different ways of interacting with and intuiting the language, through the environment, Rosetta Stone-like objects where sentences were written in multiple languages, as well as context clues given by the characters that you talk with. And because you learn more and more of a language as you interact with people, you can glean more and more from what they say. But then, as you build up your confidence and knowledge in one language, you traverse to another level in the tower, and suddenly you're back to square one. This constant feeling of, what's going on? What are they saying? What's happening? Was very intriguing, and I felt a real hunger to figure everything out. I will say towards the upper levels, the last 2 specifically, they started feeling a bit rushed? Over half the words of one language were just numbers, which, yeah, it was pertinent to figuring out the world puzzle to traverse to the next level. It just felt a bit flat for me. The last level especially was so short, and it just felt so rushed. There were almost no context clues at all. Deciphering the language consisted solely of a bunch of match the word discs, which felt very cheap and didn't at all give me the satisfaction of actually learning the language like I had in the other sections. They were my least favorite puzzles. On the other hand, as I mentioned, there's a fast travel system, but these fast travel portals held my absolute favorite puzzles of the game. Conversations. Accessing certain fast travel points granted access to a live conversation between 2 people of different languages, which you, as the player, then translate. These sections were just brilliant. Translating between languages was sometimes very tricky because, as I mentioned, the syntax can vary greatly, and successfully translating these short pieces of dialogue ended up changing areas around the tower as a whole, helping you feel like you were bringing the whole tower together until the ending! I will get there! Part 4, the story. This part has the spoilery bits in it, if you care. Skip to this time to avoid them. So, the game does have a story, which is told in a wonderfully roundabout kind of way. It's not a complex one. The people of the tower are divided through their inability to speak each other's language. They each hold reservations and judgments over the other cultures based on their assumptions of each other. And as you progress through each stage, you learn about what is troubling the people of each civilization, and through helping them, you end up being able to ascend the tower. Each area has a new language you have to learn, and you learn each language as you go. Then comes the final level, which was, in my opinion, the weakest in the game, and it's also one that kind of soured my experience as a whole. The puzzles were far too simple, and held none of the complexity of any of the other languages. Which is doubly annoying because once you did learn all of the puzzles, you're granted access to a really good, fun, complicated puzzle that helps you build up your understanding of the language through an excellent series of puzzles. I just don't understand the logic behind this. Why did you make me learn this language in a really boring, unintuitive, unfun way, and then grant me these cool puzzles which will teach me the language in a really cool, fun way? Either way, it didn't feel like I actually learned the language. When I finally ended up reading the conversations with the final people and just throughout the rest of the game, I just was reading the translation as opposed to being able to read the glyphs and the language itself. It just felt a little hollow. After these cool puzzles, you're told by the person that you saved at that point that they are essentially the keeper of the tower, and they created you as the player in order to learn every language to unite the people of the tower. The keeper then gives you a key to some secret doors that have been hidden in every level of the tower, which you must go to and save the people that are trapped inside. This was pretty satisfying, but at the same time a little disappointing, because when you successfully sneak by the enemies and save the people inside those doors, they then take over the role of communicating with other parts of the tower, instead of, me. It felt a lot like my agency was taking away during these moments. It felt less like I was the one affecting the world and more like someone else got the credit for all of the work that I'd been doing. But the most egregious part of the game to me comes from the finale, the freaking chase sequence. Yeah, remember how I said the movement was chunky and inaccurate? Well, that really came by to bite them in the ass in the finale. You get chased by a monster through a glitchy version of the tower, which, while thematically very cool and fitting, and a thrilling conclusion to the game, was very frustrating and aggravating due to the bad controls. I have very poor reaction times, and especially at the end of this game, which at every step of the way has taught me to be cautious and thorough, meant that I got constantly caught before I even really understood where I was, what it was I was supposed to do, or where I was supposed to go, which wouldn't have mattered if the chase scene didn't last forever. By the time I finally got away from the monster and into the true ending of the game, I was exasperated and tired and I just wanted the game to be over with. Which sucks, because the beginning and the middle of this game were chock full of gorgeous, beautiful puzzles and environments and were incredible. Part 5 closing thoughts. All in all, Chants of Sennaar is a beautiful, unique, wonderful experience. The puzzles were satisfying, the music is incredible, and the game itself was gorgeous, and I loved being in this world. If I had to rate this game, I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10. It gets points deducted for the clunky controls, some really tedious and repetitive segments, and difficulty navigating the world, as well as for the unsatisfying ending. I tried to avoid giving away a lot of the actual core of this game because if I tell you anything about the puzzles, well, I'm telling you about the puzzles, and that kind of defeats the purpose of going through and learning all of this stuff yourself. All that said, I do highly recommend this game. It is a really good time and the puzzles are great. If you like languages and this game sounds interesting to you at all, please play it. It's on Steam. Have you ever played Chants of Sennaar? What were your thoughts if you have? Have you played other puzzle games recently, and what were they? What is your favorite puzzle game? Honestly, mine is still Nonogram for the DS. I have been chasing the high of that game since I was like 13. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for spending some time with me. Leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. I post videos every Tuesday at noon Eastern. If you want to hear from me more often, you can follow me on all my social medias. You can find the ads here and in the description. But that's all for today's video, folks, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
Simbib, stuff I make because I'm bored.
Speaking of game devs, I do still want to make that Viz novel that I talked about making in, like, May? I have made no progress on that whatsoever.